tonight I'd like to start here. I'd like you to play TV Executive. Now the producers have finished their signature produced video package. It's going to kick off the final round of coverage of one of the biggest sporting events of the year, the U.S. Open Golf Tournament. You, the producer, are about to watch it for final approval. See if anything jumps out at you. Here it is.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation. With liberty and justice for all.
I'm sorry. Did I lapse into a coma there? I mean, it was very, very subtle. You might have missed it, Mr. Executive Producer. The words "under God and indivisible" just magically disappear. Needless to say, social media erupted within a short while. One of the NBC announcers was then forced to issue an apology in his best golf voice. Here it is.
It was our intent to begin the coverage of this U.S. Open Championship with a feature that captured the patriotism of our national championship being held in our nation's capital for the third time. Regrettably, a portion of the Pledge of Allegiance that was in that feature was edited out. It was not done to upset anyone.
No.
And we'd like to apologize to those of you who were offended by it.
I would just like to say in my best golf voice now that that is the weakest apology I've ever heard. The omitting "under God" from the pledge by omitting it. I mean, it really doesn't work. Even if it wasn't done to upset anyone, we'd kind of like to know why it was done. What a shot. I believe that was a birdie. I actually believe them. I mean, I don't think they were trying to offend anybody. It just shows how out of touch they are with the average American. They believe, that "under God, indivisible" thing, nobody's going to notice. Really? I mean, what were you trying to do? Save the extra 2 seconds in a 3.5-hour broadcast? Here's how MSNBC's boss, Phil Griffin, explained his network. MSNBC stands for something, and MSNBC is really the place to go for progressives. Oh, okay. Seeing you have the shared resources of NBC, is that what NBC is all about? I believe it is. I mean, it really shouldn't come as a surprise. Still, a lot of people were upset. But believe it or not, I actually welcome the edit. Why? Because it allows us to ask ourselves tonight this question. Are we still one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all? We find out tonight. It's like a really bad episode of the Carol Burnett Show, when you're like, oh, wow, it's ending, and then you got over it. Final episode of this program is June 30th. We have 9 shows remaining. We have a lot to talk about in those 9 shows. By the way, hello, America. I don't know where NBC would get the idea that, it's high time we start just taking "under God, indivisible" out of the Pledge of Allegiance, It's not like the president is admitting it or anything. No. I mean, okay, all right. I did forget, Mr. "We're all a nation of non-believers" routinely left out the "endowed by their creator" from the line in the Declaration of Independence, but I'm sure they're completely unrelated. Tonight, we are going to focus on this idea that we are one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In fact, I'd like to change that from a statement to a question. Are we? Let's go through each part of it. Are we one nation anymore? I don't know. I mean, every day that goes by, I think less and less so. We are pitted against each other, but not in the, we always disagree with each other, and there's nothing wrong with disagreeing, but now we're enemies. The haves against the have-nots. He's got my stuff. We're all socialists now, or we're teabaggers that drove America in the ditch. Part of the enlightened collectivist who wish to redistribute all the wealth, or you're just for small government. Those free from injustice. There's that half. The free from injustice of the universal health care mandates. And then the rest of us who either are small businesses or work for small businesses whose companies will be hurt, some destroyed, because we can't get the special waivers exempting us from the White House. There are those who believe in the Constitution and those who want to make progress past an outdated old document. Are we one nation? Are we under God? Since 1948, the number of people who say they have no religious identity has increased 500%. But are we still a nation of believers? 92% say yes, they believe in God. But do we practice that anymore? I mean, I don't mean going to church. I mean actually believe it enough to do anything with it. Have we lost our way? Have we made our God the golden calf, the idol, the car, the mall, the bank accounts, the logo on your shirt, the status, the power in Congress, anything but the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? Many so-called believers are weak-kneed, and they remain neutral in the face of politically correct pressure. The pressure to do all kinds of things, to remove the Ten Commandments, to strike the name of God from any public place, to stop prayer in public school. A school in California recently canceled a fundraising program featuring memorial bricks because 2 women chose Bible verses for their inscriptions. And this weekend, the valedictorian in Vermont only delivered half of his speech because the principal instructed him to avoid all mentions of God. And now, in our best golf voice, we edit out, "Under God, indivisible," from the pledge. America, people over at MSNBC, etc., will tell you that this doesn't matter. You know, what difference does it make? Many people, maybe even in this audience, will say, it doesn't matter. That makes you a neutral party. But in today's world, there is no neutral. There is no neutral party. Buyer beware, God is not neutral. And neutral, if you leave it in neutral long enough, it'll start to roll down a hill. Now the next part of it is liberty. One nation under God, indivisible, with liberty. I question if we're a country that even understands liberty anymore. Look what we're allowing to happen here. Government taking over GM, government forcing us to purchase something for the first time. You can't be a citizen in good standing unless you purchase a product called health care. Even children are getting physically abused during intrusive pat-downs at our airports, and nobody says anything.
I'm crying because I'm just really, really upset that as an American, I have to go through this. And I do feel violated. I didn't think that I would when I had to opt out of the machine, but I completely feel violated.
It could be somebody's sister. And is anybody saying anything except the great state of Texas, which tried to stand up against it, and then they were bullied and they were told, we'll shut down all your airspace. By the way, Texas is responsible for creating nearly half of all the jobs created in America from June 2009 through April 2011. The country, despite what the president says, he didn't add 2 million jobs. We added 496,000 jobs. We've rounded it up. Now, according to the Dallas Fed, how many were created in Texas? 237,000 of those jobs. 437. 237 of them were created in Texas. The rest of them created in the other 49 states. Now, how is Texas rewarded for their success? Well, the EPA decides to mandate now, without bothering to talk to anybody in Texas about it, to comply with the federal Clean Air Transport Rule. That's going to slam Texas and hurt jobs. The move could cost the state billions and may even cause citizens to have less access to electrical power. But our president is okay with that. I mean, under his plan, electricity rates will necessarily skyrocket. They did this despite the fact that since the 90s, Texas has had an effective clean air program on the state level. Texas officials wrote a letter of complaint to Cass Sunstein, quote, "This is a significant regulatory action costing the state of Texas billions of dollars and tens of thousands of lost megawatts of electric power generation." Gee, who in their wildest dreams would have seen the tire iron in the spokes of our economy and our country being Cass Sunstein, our regulatory and information czar? By the way, letters aren't going to affect Cass. He doesn't understand liberty the way you do, America. Why stick this federal debacle on Texas when they seem to be doing fine? Shouldn't we be asking Texas their advice during these difficult times when they've added half of the jobs? One state. Are we a people that understand liberty? I contend no. We're also becoming a mobocracy. The power goes to those who have the most money. The unions that go to people's houses, even the mobs on the street. And the glue that holds this whole thing together is knowing history and knowing God. If we abandon history and God, which we've done a pretty good job of, evidenced by the miserable history scores coming from our students, and do I need to list the example of godlessness? Without these, we are not indivisible. We fall apart. Are we indivisible? Well, the best way to divide people is with fear. It's what I'm accused of doing all the time. Although my predictions all seem to be warranted because they're all turning out to be right, aren't they? I want to show you what's happening again using fear. This is something new over the weekend. This is Shakira. She is a singer. She's a goodwill ambassador to the UN, and she's scheduled to visit Jerusalem for the Israeli presidential conference. Well, now special interest groups are pressuring her to cancel the trip, telling her to say no to apartheid and yes to freedom for Palestine. There's an entire website campaign devoted to her stopping this visit. But she's not the only one being targeted now. Over the weekend, I found out a couple of things here. A group called Americans for Peace Now has created a similar page attempting to stop my trip to Israel this August. Now, if you had to guess, and you said, "Now wait a minute, this has got to be costing some money here," who's paying for this effort? Would you say it is A, ordinary concerned citizens, or B, George Soros? I actually said A at first because I didn't think George Soros would have the cojones, which I think is French for hats, to do that. But wrong again. George Soros. The Tides Foundation, supported by Soros to be exact, has given regularly to this group. Who would have seen that one coming? Then I also saw on Friday another attack from the Washington Post. Are we bothering you? Left. Is this show bothering you? Oh, wait, because you're going to pray for the days when I was only on at 5 o'clock. Oh, you'll be down on your knees going, "I know I don't believe in God, but please put him on only at 5. Oh, you're going to pray for it. Anyway, the Washington Post seems to be bothered also by my Israel trip. This clown who wrote this is far left guy who just trying to sell a book that sold, I think 3 copies. But anyway, to me, it's honestly amazing he still has a job because it's the worst. I mean, we have a very low standard for journalistic, integrity at the Washington Post, apparently. But I mean, he did the limbo under that. They are targeting in this article, not me, but Joe Lieberman, because he is supporting an event in Israel. The Washington Post reporter was shocked and said Lieberman was threatening to destroy his career if he went through with it. Quote, "If he shares a stage with this creature." Note, the Washington Post has labeled me a creature. "He will surrender the decency that has defined his public life." Now, even more disturbing than the creature part is the blatant intimidation tactic. It's amazing. They're trying to intimidate everybody that wants to stand for Israel. Isn't that weird? And in there is the out-and-out lie in the article that Lieberman was waffling in his support. Quote, when I spoke to Lieberman, he sounded less definite. I'm going to go. I don't know, he said. I've got a lot of other things going on. I hope he finds something else to do on August 24th. As he approaches his Senate retirement, it could spare him a shameful end to a dignified career. Well, I called Joe Lieberman on Friday afternoon, and I apologized to him that I have done anything that would warrant his being smeared like this. I was left with the impression that Joe Lieberman is much more committed than he was before the article. There is a brave, brave man that has crossed and is willing to stand with somebody he disagrees with because he trusts his heart, as I trust Joe Lieberman's heart on this issue, and we will stand together. We talked about how this event can't be allowed to fail. Those are his words. I agree. There were even more lies about how I'm really just an anti-Semite who's trying to cover my tracks. Can I tell you something? If I'm an anti-Semite, I'm the worst anti-Semite the world has ever seen. I mean, I spend more time defending Israel and warning on anti-Semitism than any other show. And quite honestly, I think more than any other show, all the other shows combined against it. And we're regulars in the leftist Palestinian death threat factory, so I think we suck at being anti-Semitic. Don't you think, really? Jews of the world, you're safe if I'm the monster in the closet. But the attacks are coming because they need to intimidate people. You see, nudge becomes shove, and shove becomes shoot. We're entering the shove part. And it's because we won't sit down. We won't say, no, we are one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Throughout history, man has always been under the thumb of someone trying to crush his spirit and control him. It's either a corporation or a government, usually a government, they're the worst. But it always starts small with a little Cass Sunstein, a pat-down search here or paperwork there. If somebody asked me if I believe the Palestinians there is a plight to the Palestinians, yes there is. I believe there is. But if people in the Middle East or around the world really cared about their plight, can I ask, I mean, I've seen Transjordan here. This is the whole land that was carved up by the UN. How about this whole? What about all that land? I mean, that whole chunk there belonged to that. They carved this out of this. What do you say? Why couldn't the Palestinians just have some of that land given to Jordan? Why not? It didn't belong to anybody else. Why don't they just have that? I mean, if it was just about getting from under somebody's thumb. See, it's not. The people that they are saying that they are for are being used as a distraction so you don't pay attention to the people they are gunning down in the streets of Syria. It's happening in Syria and elsewhere in the region. No one will talk about that injustice. They just gun them down. You see, it's not about justice for all. It's about justice for some. Generally, it's the rich, it's the powerful, it's the ruling class. That's who it is. Justice for them, not for you. You are a device. Do I think there's a plight for Palestinians? Yes. Do I stand with those in Egypt that have really truly been oppressed and do want freedom? Yes. Have we been a part of their oppression as a country? Yes. Now, do you want to solve things, or do you just want more power for yourself? Man has never been freer than he is now, but it is about to slip into darkness. We haven't really been free for quite some time. And it's not about Obama or George Bush. This started over 100 years ago. And man has been in darkness under somebody's thumb, from the Assyrians to Genghis Khan to the Nazis to Mubarak. The founders believed that the natural state of man is bad when they rule or have power. That's why they had handcuffs on them. They knew people would be consumed with power, money, or glory. That's why we have a Constitution that is a charter of negative liberties. And that's why we say one nation under God. It's his glory, not Assad's, not Mubarak's, not Obama's, nobody. His liberty and justice for all. If we don't learn that, we will be indivisible for a very short period of time. Many in the media don't even understand the importance of this last line. But the good news is we had NBC Golf Sports to help us remember and put it all back into perspective.